let's see. What can you see now? Can you see my presentation? Because I'm having some doubts. No?
It's
No.
loading, I think.
It's loading. Okay. Hey, Alejandra, good morning.
Good morning, Miss.
How are you today?
Fine, and you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. I'm trying to share my screen so we can start the session. So, what about now? Can you see my presentation?
Not yet.
No, yet. Okay, so well, let's go with the first activity and see if I can solve this problem. So, as I was saying, this activity to start the session is called Fears and Hopes. I would like to invite you to write in the chat box your greatest hope for the current year. Okay, so then we can discuss about fears and hopes, and then we can continue with the content, of course. So please write in the chat box. Um, what is your greatest hope for the current year? I mean, the year is ending, but anyway, what is your greatest hope for the end of the year? You can write in the chat box or you can turn on your microphones and share with the rest of the class.
I would say that what I'm really hoping is to improve my pronunciation and also my in some way my grammar skills. Also, and overall with the prepositions and phrasal verbs, because that's something that we usually use all the time, and I think it's really important to master it at least at the beginning, not in the third or fourth year.
Okay, and how do you think that you can do that? Can you accomplish that goal?
Yeah, the only way that I have is to practice and listen and reading, because I don't have any other option.
Okay, you need to practice your skills, right? Okay, thank you very much, Guillermo, for sharing with the rest of the class. I see more students joining the session. Hey, Vanessa, good morning. Macarena and Daniel, how are you today?
Good morning, Miss. How are you? I'm fine.
Well, I'm fine, thank you very much. What about the rest? Macarena and Vanessa, are you here? Good
Hello,
morning.
hi, Miss. Yes, I'm fine.
So, the exercise we're doing now, it's called Fears and Hopes, and we're sharing with the rest of the class our greatest hope for the current year or for the end of this year. So, if you want, you can share with the rest of the class what is your greatest hope for the end of the year, or you can write in the chat box if you don't want to turn on your microphone or if you cannot turn on your microphone. So, anybody else? What is your greatest hope for the current year? Guillermo said to improve his grammar and writing skills, right?
Pronunciation.
And pronunciation, exactly. What about the rest? What is your greatest hope for the end of the year?
My greatest hope is to to pass all my subjects. That's the only thing that I want.
Okay, that's your greatest hope to pass all of your subjects. And how is that? Do you think that you could make that hope real? Do you think that that is going to happen? What are your expectations about that?
Hopefully.
Okay, Catherine shared, I mean, with the rest of the class.
What? Sorry?
What about that expectation that you shared with the rest of the class, Danielle? Do you think that that is going to happen?
Yes.
Yes?
I
So,
yes. It's going
yes,
to happen.
okay.
I have to be
100%
positive.
sure, right?
Hmm?
100% sure, right?
99, I would say.
No problem. Thank you very much, Daniel. And what about Vanessa? Vanessa, can you share with the rest of the class? You can write in the chat box if you want. So, what is your greatest hope for the end of this current year?
As well as Daniel, I want to improve all my subjects.
And how is that going? Is that possible or not really?
Yes,
Yes?
but now I'm a little bit tired and I don't have um, motivation, but I think it would be possible.
Okay, that's perfect. Yes. Well, all of us are feeling tired at the end of the year. And what about Macarena? Macarena, are you here?
Hello.
Hello, Macarena. So, would you like to share with the rest of the class what is your greatest hope for the end of the current year?
I don't I don't really have one, but I think that for next year I would like to pass the FCE.
You would like to pass the FC.
Yeah,
Okay. And do you think that is possible? Of course, it is possible, I guess.
yeah. But you know, I'm a little bit afraid, but I think it's normal
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't listen.
that I am a little bit afraid and nervous, but I think that it's normal to feel like that.
Yes, of course, it is normal to feel nervous and afraid when you have this very important test, right? And I would like to ask somebody else. What about Alejandra? Alejandra, are you here? Can you share with the rest of the class what is your greatest hope for the end of the current year?
I think approve all the subject.
Okay. So everything related with the university and the subjects, right? No other kind of hope. So all of you share like the same hope, that is to approve all the subjects and to pass the courses, right? All of your hopes are kind of related. So anybody has a different hope for the end of the year?
What about you? What is your greatest hope, Miss?
My greatest hope. Well, it also has to do with the my last practicum process. My expectation and hope is to approve this last part of my career. So that is of course my greatest hope in terms of, I mean, academically speaking. We have another person joining the session. It's Claudio. And what about Mr. Ramirez? Would you like to share with the rest of the class? What is your greatest hope now for the end of this year?
I think my greatest hope is that my daughter can make a smooth transition to the next level because she is finishing kinder and she's going to be taking the first grade next year. So I hope this change of teachers is it's getting in a smooth way for her. It's easy, not so abrupt. So that's kind of my hope. And academically speaking, or connected with the university, um, I don't know if it's a hope or a concern, because I'm having some concerns about the system of having everything online, people attending classes online, being evaluated online, in general, right? Not just you, but in general, all the people. And um, since the little preparation was done before, because no one was really prepared for a situation like this, um, if we're doing things right so that students are learning what they have to learn in order to build up their professional identity, as teachers. If teachers are doing it right, if we are doing it right, using are making the most of all the tools that we have, um, and if those students who are not attending are getting enough preparation outside, getting help from YouTube channels, videos, tutorials, etc., etc. Assuming that sometimes you don't learn everything from a class, but there are also books and other resources. So I'm just crossing my fingers that this is happening, and that eventually the ground is going to be leveled for everyone, because it's very hard to understand sometimes in this virtual process if a student is understanding or is not understanding a content or developing a skill or not, because you cannot see anyone. You see the screen, you see some initials. Sometimes microphones are off, so it's very hard to tell if we're going in the right direction or not. So that's sort of a not a hope, but more of a concern, I would say.
Okay, yes, I understand absolutely your concern. So now that we've been talking about hopes, let's go with fears. What was your greatest fear at the beginning of the year? Can you share with the rest of the class? Do you remember what was your biggest fear at the beginning of the year? You can write in the chat box if you want. You can turn on your microphones and share with the rest of the class as you wish. Anybody? Okay, we have someone typing in the chat box. Oh, it was Catherine. So, would you like to share with the rest of the class? What about Angela? Angela, what was your biggest fear at the beginning of the year?
My biggest fear, um, well, I'm not sure, but I think it was that not pass my subjects because I began another um, year in the university, so that's was my greatest fear. Then the pandemic arrived, and the fear um, increased. I think so.
Okay, I understand. And what about Catalina Toro? Catalina, what was your your biggest fear at the beginning of the year? So, Catalina is not here, I guess. What about Claudio Avila? Claudio, would you like to share with the rest of the class? What was your biggest?
Actually, no, because I don't feel comfy talking with other people about these things, so I rather not to do it. Not about fears, at least.
Okay, no problem. And somebody else who would like to talk about his or her biggest fear at the beginning of the year? Nobody? Anybody? Vanessa, what about you?
I remember that I at the beginning of the year I mean not the beginning but in March, I was afraid of the COVID-19 because all the rumors and myths and um I was afraid for my family, my mom because she's has asthma. So I was afraid for her, but hopefully we haven't um I don't know how to say get sick of it.
I think that we were all afraid. We all had this fear about the COVID
Mhm.
19, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and now just the last exercise. Please tell me or type in the chat box yes or no. Did your fear become real or not? The fear that you had at the beginning of the year, did it become real or not? That thing that you were afraid of, did it happen? Macarena says no. Vanessa says no, no. I see 3 no's. Okay, that is great. Sometimes we think that we cannot overcome certain situations, but at the end, we do, and that it's great, you know? I don't know if it has happened to you before. You're so afraid about something, about doing something. It happened to me with my professional practicum. Mr. Ramirez can tell you about it. I was so afraid about not doing well or not being good enough. But you know, I see now that the year is ending and I did it. I feel great about that. So my fear did not become real. Okay, so I don't know if anybody would like to share something, a comment. I guess you're not so talkative today. So let's start now with the content. My students are not so talkative. Okay, so one more time, I'll try to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Can you? Are you seeing my presentation?
Not
No,
yet.
really.
No yet. What can you see? Is it loading?
Yeah,
It's
it's look
loading.
like, yeah,
Okay, so
like like the black screen.
it's a black screen. Okay, let's wait a little bit so you can see my presentation because it's beautiful. And today we're going to talk about something different. It's a different topic, a new topic for you. I don't know if you have heard about world Englishes or variations in English accents. Have you heard about that? About those two concepts?
Yeah, Mr. Ramirez has been talking about it since the last year, I guess.
Really? Okay, and
Yeah,
what can you say about variations in English accents or world Englishes? What do you know about that?
that there are different type of English because it's like the same with Spanish. With Spanish, I mean, it's not only one English that is correct. Instead of that, there are different varied kind of English that are right, and they have their own patterns, their own pronunciation, their own rhythms, and it's mainly is like a different version of English, but it is right anyways.
Yes, of course. That is when we talk about variation in accents. Anybody else has a different idea about variation in English accents or variations in accents in general? Guillermo is the only one that remembers the topic.
No, but I think Guillermo said everything.
Guillermo said everything, really. No more ideas regarding variations in English accents?
I was thinking about how English has expanded around the world. So many people in the world speak English, and everyone has a different native accent. So everyone has a different uh, accent when they speak English. And that was I was thinking about how many people talk English, speaking English, sorry, and how different their English is.
Yes, exactly, Claudio. Thank you very much. And when we talk about world Englishes, what comes to your mind? World Englishes? Any idea?
Can you repeat that?
World Englishes. I'll write it in the chat box. Any idea for the concept of world Englishes?
Countries.
Countries, okay. Anybody else? Anything else? World Englishes? It has to do with countries. Yes, of course.
The kind of accents, maybe.
Accents, okay, yes. What else? Anybody? So, meanwhile, the presentation is loading because I don't know what happened actually. I'm really sorry about that. We will start making the difference between two very important concepts that are the concept of dialect and accent. Do you know the difference between these two concepts, dialect and accent? What do you think is the difference when we say dialect or when we talk about accent? Is there any difference?
Yes, I know that accent is like the sound when you are talking, uh, and dialect is the way to speak. For example, the grammar that a specific country has, the vocabulary used there, and all of that.
Yes, exactly. So in terms of accent, we talk about sound, and when it's about dialect, we also include grammar and vocabulary. Very good, Catherine. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Another difference between dialect and accent?
Accent are mainly happens inside a country, and the dialect is more like it happens inside a big in the whole world. Like every country has a dialect, but inside every country there are different accents.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Guillermo. Well, actually, when we talk about dialect, it is a variety of a language spoken by a group of people that is systematically different from other varieties in both structure and lexical features. A dialect includes the pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary that people use within a group. So all the speakers of a language speak a dialect of the language. And the term accent refers to the differences in pronunciation. Many dialects involve accent or phonological differences. An accent refers to how people pronounce words. So, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ramirez. Now he's sharing my presentation. That's great. Let's go with to the next slide, please. So as I said before, a dialect has to do with the variety of the languages spoken, and the accent has to do with the differences in pronunciation. Now, in the next slide, you will see different statements that correspond to dialect or an accent. You will tell me if the statement that you can see there is talking about accent or dialect, okay? So if we say, it is simply how one pronounces words, it has to do with dialect or accent.
Accent.
Accent, somebody says accent. What about the rest? Do you all agree? The way we pronounce a word has to do with the accent?
Yes.
Yes, yes, you're right, because how we pronounce word has to do with accent, exactly. Now let's go with the next one. If we say that it has to do with the tone, we're talking about accent or dialect?
I think it is accent as well.
Accent as well. Do you all agree? What about the rest?
Yes.
Yes, of course. If we're talking about tone, it has to do with accent, exactly. Let's see the next one. If it has to do with the verbalization of words, what do you think? Are we talking about dialect or accent?
That sounds like dialect. Is it like the opposite?
Yeah, teacher, how do you explain verbalization, the concept itself?
That is a good question, Guillermo. How do you explain the word in Spanish, verbalizar? What is it for you?
For me, in Spanish, it's more like putting ideas into words, but it's more like a grammar and semantic construction than a way of than an accent itself.
Okay, once again, connectivity issues. So we were in this one. It has to do with the verbalization of words, and I said it has to do with dialect, right? So let's go with the next one.
Actually, Guillermo was asking about the concept of verbalization. Miss Contreras, are you there?
She's not.
No. Connection issues.
Yeah, I've been there. All right, let's move on with the next one. That was her desire. A style of pronunciation, accent or dialect.
Accent.
Accent.
All right, accent. Um, the next one, Claudio, could you read it aloud, please, if you're so kind?
It is a part of a dialect. Yes.
Now, what do you think?
I think it is accent because it includes it is included in the dialect. So how can it be dialect?
All right. All right. And Guillermo, could you read this aloud, please?
It includes pronunciation, vocab, and grammar. And I would say that this is a dialect because it includes a bunch of stuff and only things related to the sounds itself.
Right. And when we when we talk about the Spanish spoken in Colombia, Venezuela, Bolivia, Argentina, do we talk? Do we say that we have different accent, or that there are different dialects? What do you think?
I think it could be the same, but in different ways.
Okay.
It's
Can you go
both.
deeper in that? Both?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that there is a misconception in Spanish because I think that we call it accent, but it's a dialect. The different variation that are spoken in different countries. But we focus more in the accent because more is is more highlighted when we are speaking with someone from a different country.
Exactly. Because the concept of dialect is more of an umbrella because it includes the concept of pronunciation. If the difference goes beyond pronunciation, right, but goes about different words, people using or speakers using different words for the same phenomenon, for the same object. For example, for a fruit or for a piece of furniture. and they have a different name in a different country, even though the language is the same, in this case, Spanish. We're talking about dialectal differences or different dialects. Because when we say a different dialect, it includes the differences in terms of pronunciation. If within a country, in a nation, you have people that have some differences in terms of the way they pronounce things, but they basically are using the same word, but with a different pronunciation. At that point, we're talking about a different accent. In Spanish, you may have some geographical areas that are neighboring or close to each other, and that sometimes some specific segmental features, such as individual vowel sounds, are different. For example, a trap for a long a, like for example, people saying bath with a trap and bath with a long a. So that's an element that has to do with pronunciation, therefore with a different accent, but not a change in terms of grammar or vocabulary. So whenever we see differences in terms of vocabulary and not just pronunciation, we should consider the term a dialect and not just accent. So with the Venezuelan, with any other Spanish speaking country, or with Spanish speakers from this continent, we have to be talking about different Spanish dialects, right? I hope that's clear. Catherine, would you mind reading the next statement, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
It is associated with geographical location, socioeconomic background, and status.
What is this? What do you think?
Dialect.
A dialect. Yeah, I was thinking about a more specific word containing the same ending, lect, but this same beginning, socia. So socialect. Whenever we talk about a socialect, we talk about a sort of a dialect, right? A type of dialect spoken by a specific social class. So whenever, in every country, whenever you look at the different social classes that have to do with, the amount of money they make, the cultural capital or resources, etc., etc., we may probably identify a high social class, a middle class, a lower class. And each one of those classes can be associated with a specific vocabulary or lack of it, intonation, etc., etc., right? So when we describe these dialects, we call them socialects when they are connected with social classes. Even there's a more specific word that is called idiolect, that is the type of vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar used by each one of us. So we can analyze and discuss, for example, the way that Carlos speaks, the way that Daniel speaks, the way that Javiera speaks, right? I'm not saying because we want to make fun of it, but from a linguistic point of view, we can discuss and analyze how one person uses a language, because everyone speaks in a very unique way, or everyone uses the language in one specific way. And that specific way, it's called idiolect. Okay, so there are several linguistic elements that have to do with, for example, social class, geographical location. I think we studied when we referred to intonation that also intonation is associated with the type of job you have. If you work as a police officer, as a politician, as a priest, or as a teacher, Also, you might have a different type of intonation connected with this social position and everything connected with the type of job that you do. Okay. So I think the idea of I don't know if Miss Sophia is there, so she can. I think she's not. I think she's not. So I think the idea of accent and a dialect is more or less clear. What do you think, Daniel?
Yes, I think it's very clear. I understand the differences between those concepts.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the feedback. Miss Sophia has in this slide, can we call these slides? I guess. Yeah, at the bottom, I can see there the word slide. So when we talk about rhotic and non-rhotic accents, we refer to a specific linguistic characteristic in terms of pronunciation of some languages, particularly British variety, right, and Australian variety that do not have rhoticity or the pronunciation of the final R in final position. In initial position and middle position, usually, right, in middle position, it's present in the rhotic accents. Now, is that the only difference between rhotic and non-rhotic accents? Or let me change the question because it was badly formulated. When we compare RP and GA, received pronunciation and American, general American, is rhoticity the only element that can make these two varieties different? Is there any other element that you could compare between RP and general American? What do you think?
No.
Which other differences do you think there are?
There's some. Oh, go ahead.
No, Claudio, please.
Okay, thanks. I was thinking about how the same object can have different names. And about accent, I also think that British English is more fluent. They omit more the sounds. They skip the sounds a lot. And American English doesn't.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, we're talking about general aspects, right? Because we need to understand as well that when we talk about British, when we talk about RP, we're talking about one specific dialect among many, many, many others that are that are used in or spoken in Great Britain, as well as when we say General American, is a standard version among many other dialectal varieties, right? So we're talking about very, very general things. So skipping sounds, eliding sounds. Okay, thank you, Claudio. I think Catherine was going to mention some other elements.
Yeah, I would like to say the difference between some words, some expressions that, for example, I don't know, something super simple. As in the UK, you said the ground floor, and in the USA, you said first floor, for example, and many other aspects like expressions that probably you used in some way in the USA and in the UK is different or actually it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly. So that's a difference in terms of lexicon or vocabulary that has to do with the specific regional variety, for instance, right? Perfect. Now, how do you say the word aquí, aquí in Spanish? How do you pronounce that? Or how would a British speaker, how would a British speaker pronounce the word in English, and how would an American pronounce the word aquí? How do you translate that, and how would a speaker of each variety, how would he or she pronounce it? What do you think if the British speaker could say something like here, here, and a speaker using a general American version would say here, here. Do you see any difference?
Yeah, British people love the schwa sound.
They do, right? They do. They're in love with it. uh, and it was really fun the way you said it. And also there's another thing right here, here. I don't know if you can spot it or if I'm explaining myself.
Yes, in American there's an R at the end.
Exactly. In general American, there's very frequently heard the final which is that's why it's called erotic variety. Whereas in RP in general, we find an non-rhotic version, right? Unless the next sound or next word starts with an vowel sound, right? Right, and therefore we may see linking R. Also, when you hear a speaker using received pronunciation, there's a high probability that you can hear a diphthong here, here, with the final schwa. Whereas in speaker using General American, you might hear a monophthong here, 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 here. Very good contribution, Catherine. Here and here. So that's the point. No, it's not only rhoticity, but also the preference for a diphthong in RP, whereas in General American you might see a monophthong, right? Okay. Now, how much do you know about English as a global language? Do you have a clear idea about? Okay, let me put this in a question. Great Britain, right? It's an island. It's a very small island. Let me see if I can show you a map, because it's always good to have a reference for this, right? Okay, so are you seeing a map? Yes? No?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. And can you see the where England is? It's right there, right? British Islands, right there. Look at the size. Look at the size of Britain. Look at the size of some countries in Britain. Look at the size of Canada, Australia. It's such a small place. How can a place so small, where English was born, right, as a language, could have such a big influence in so many different countries? And now we are, using English as a second language or as a foreign language in several countries. How do you explain that?
They use the force, of course. They invaded countries. They tortured people. They destroyed people's families and dreams, and by force, of course, with an army.
Uh, I would say
Uh-huh.
that it's, yeah, it's for that, for what Claudio said, but also because they have a more advanced technology and also a more advanced knowledge of different if about economy and also about science. So they have that advantage that in America a big part of the people didn't have, and also big part of America weren't so populated like in Europe. So there was like a land without people in some places, and then they just establish in those places and they start reproducing and they create big societies.
Except for Australia, it was a Yale.
Right. But it's interesting because, yes, they invaded several countries when they became an empire. The British Empire colonized several countries, not only in Africa, but also in Asia and even in America. But before that, they were also invaded. If you know a little bit of history, or if you heard maybe, the Celts living in Britain were invaded by the Romans because the Roman Empire also, starting from Italy, they invaded several countries, several territories. One of them was Britain. And if my memory is not failing me, they had to leave um, Britain in 410, 410, because there were some revolts in Italy. So the legions had to be sent back to Italy. So the Romans left, and then um, these tribes, the Saxons, and the Jutes came from all these Nordic places, all these Scandinavian countries, and these raided and plunged um, the island. If you watched episodes from the series Vikings, anyone? Does it ring a bell?
Yes.
Vikings? Yeah. All right. So they raided, uh, and of course they took with them the language. So there was a big influence of the Vikings in terms of language as well. And beyond that, there were some Vikings that stayed in this north part of Europe, in France, with Rollo. If you watch the episode of Vikings, Rollo invaded later on the island, and it was this time the Normans that influenced Britain, taking their culture, their legal system, architecture, all the castles. I mean, they didn't take the castles; they took the technology to build them, and also the language. So French was influencing Great Britain for about 300 years. French was the most prestigious language in the island. Um, it's spoken by aristocracy, by the monarchy, by all the rich people, and all the people who owned land. So my point is, the island was invaded several times by the Romans first, then by the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, all these Scandinavian tribes, and then by the Normans. Uh, so it was quite devastated, because if you are a country that receives waves of immigrants or waves of invaders that are looting and taking all the resources, uh, somehow you are defeated. But they um, stood up, and of course some events took place, like industrial revolution, and they were leading, right, industrial revolution with the technology. The wars, right, World War One and the second one, and they had a leading role along with the United States. The connection with technology of English. So we see that many events, many historical events took place that somehow give a boost to English to become a global language. Could have been Spanish, it could have been Latin, it could have been Chinese or Arabic. but all these historical events and all these events align so as to so that English was placed in a in a more prestigious status. Even one very historical event in which the British got very lucky was the defeat of the Spanish Armada. You know that from an island, the only possibility for you to conquer a territory is to go by ship, right? To sail. So Spain was very right here. Spain was very powerful in terms of maritime at sea, right? Power at sea. It had a very powerful armada or very powerful ships, a very powerful fleet. So it was defeated when they were getting closer to Britain. They had a very bad climate, and they sunk. So the British did not have any counterpart. They didn't have any enemy at sea. So that was also a lucky strike that helped them to continue making their empire grow. So as you can see, the influence of Britain extended in Africa, in Asia. That's why one of the biggest colonies there is India, and also in Australia and New Zealand, and of course United States and Canada. So it's very interesting to understand the different factors that took place and combined in order to understand why English is a global language, right? Sorry. Sorry, not not interested, not interested, not interesting. So I think you're already familiar with this circle, I think. So I would like to ask Javiera Leon, if you feel comfortable, and only if you feel comfortable, if you could explain this model of world Englishes by Cacru. Some call him Cacru. Okay, if you can explain this model, Javiera, if you have a working microphone. So just to confirm that we all understand this image in the same way. Macarena, would you like to explain this model? Are you familiar with this model? I think you are, aren't you? I mean, if you're not, just let me know or type in the chat box. I really don't know the model.
Sorry, teacher, but I really don't know how to explain this circle. I mean, I've never seen it before.
Teacher, in my case,
All right.
I don't know if I'm right, but at least I know that uh, I'm guessing only, but the in the inner circle are the countries that use the English as the most important language, or maybe the only official language. Well, in exception with New Zealand and Canada, because they have more than one language. And the other circle is like country that had been affected by English in some way. For example, Philippines, they were affected by the for the World War II, I guess. And then when the American went to that place and they were living in those islands. In South Africa, people speak something like four, five languages that are, and they're all co-official languages.
And I know that in Ghana and Kenya, people usually speak English, and it is taught at the school, and and I guess that in the outer, I mean, in the last circle, are countries that are really that really use the language for finance purposes.
Yes, what a great contributions. Thanks so much, Guillermo. Exactly the way you depicted this. Um, Kachru or Kakru, depending on how you would like to um, give this name a pronunciation. I'm not sure. Talks about an inner circle for the countries that use English as a native language or as a first language. Okay, they use English as a native language. Sometimes they use the acronym ENL, English as a native language, or EML, English as a mother language. And also the idea of norm giving or norm assigning. The idea that the English spoken here gives a norm to the other two circles. Just like when in Spanish we talk about or consider this organism called RAE, Real Academia Española de la Lengua, um, as norm providing, because through the dictionary they are telling the rest of the Spanish speakers which lexicon is accepted by which one is not. The outer circle, um, in which we see Bangladesh, Kenya, among other countries, is the circle in which the countries use English as a second language, or that the English has official recognition of the state, and it's used in the political arena, in the legal system, for professional development of different workers, for instance. Um, so in any official affair, official matter, right, that is recognized by the state, English has an official recognition by the state, even though there may be other languages like the ones you mentioned in South Africa. There may be other languages, but English holds the same official as the other ones. Okay, and in the expanded circle, we have China, Egypt, Japan, and other countries in which English is spoken as a foreign language. Even though these countries may have plans, programs, or linguistic policies for for their inhabitants to learn English as a second language. Sometimes a geographical position, just like in Chile, Chile would be placed, if you agree with me, in the expanding circle, because geographically we're not close to any English-speaking country, because we are mainly interested in learning English because of the knowledge, the number of books that is written in English, the publications issued every year in English, and for economic reasons, in order for the country to continue with this trade or commerce with other countries. So we're part of the expanding circle. There are linguistic policies. The government is pushing certain initiatives for the population to learn English, but still it's considered a foreign language. So Kachru or Kakru presents this model in which three concentric circles, inner circle, outer circle, and expanded circle, tries to reflect the status of the English language in each one of these countries. We have to remember that countries in the outer circle had a specific relationship with English as colonies, or a certain political influence, either from Great Britain or from United States. If you remember, Guillermo mentioned the position of Philippines in World War II. So there's a relationship between countries in this outer circle and any of the two countries, Britain and United States, usually because of connections with war or being a colony. Okay, this model is not obsolete. It has been a long time since Kashur issued it or discussed his model. There's another one more dynamic from Schneider, but this one also can help us to identify or put a label in these countries. Um, it's time to have a break because it's 12 o'clock, so we need to break apart from a class to do something else. That's totally human, right? After the break, I'm going to show you a video. We're going to watch a video. This video is about dialectal differences. This YouTuber talks about differences that we can find in English from the point of view of speakers. He's going to provide examples from New Zealand, Australia, and I think from two dialects, one from Geordie and the other one is Brahmi from Birmingham. And also, I think he's going to give us a test how to learn if the British speaker is from the north of England or the south of England. Okay, and then we're going to be discussing a dialect which is Filipino. That's the plan in case Miss Sophia is not here. All right. So enjoy the break. Stretch your legs. I'm getting very cold, so I'm going to get something to drink, something hot. So I'll see you in 10 more minutes. It's 12:04, 12:15. See you then, guys. Enjoy the break.